while your day is winding down. They're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. But tonight we're actually starting off the show with a candidate in the Ward 3 special election. We've been having all the candidates on. I've reached out to every candidate that has declared in the special election. Papers are due tomorrow. And Chris will be back on Wednesday, by the way. But I'm joined now by Kathy Dehner, candidate for Ward 3 City Council. Kathy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Sorry, one more time.
I'm great. How are you?
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. I think the mic was off by accident. So, Kathy, a lot of people know who you are because you were previously a city councilor. You've been in the city for a long time. But for the people who don't know you, just tell us briefly who you are and why you've decided to run for Ward 3 City Council.
Well, I'm a lifelong resident of New Bedford, and I was a city councilor from 2007 to 12. There are a lot of issues in Ward 3 right now that I feel really need to be addressed, and it has to be someone that really understands the city, someone that knows the city, knows what our needs are.
So we're speaking with Kathy Dehner. She's a candidate in the special election for Ward 3 City Council. So, Kathy, I talked to you a little bit about this during before we got on air, but you were a Ward 3 City Councilor. You ran in a special election some time ago. You served 2 terms. The voters at a certain point decided to go in a different path in Ward 3. So what is different now? Why should voters come back to you in this race?
Well, I have experience with being a city councilor, and to be quite honest, that was a tough time for me. I mean, I hate to throw personal stuff out there,
Sure.
but I was going through a divorce.
Yeah.
I was closing my real estate office. We were selling buildings that I really not necessarily wanted to let go of. So at the end of my term, it was a tough time for me.
But you feel like now that with everything you have going on, that you are in a position to represent the ward and represent it dutifully as you had before and you intended to when you had ran for re-election.
100%.
So we're speaking with Kathy Dehner. She is a candidate in the Ward 3 City Council special election. She also was a Ward 3 City Councilor previously. So Kathy, you obviously have institutional knowledge, having been on the council for a few terms. What are some of the other professional qualifications that you bring to the race?
I've been a real estate broker for 32 years, so I definitely understand home values, and also being a business owner. I owned Java Jungle, I owned Center Street Realty. I know the needs of business people as well. So one of the main issues, aside from public safety, which of course is always number one in a city,
Of course.
our taxes are crazy.
Yeah.
So what's the solution for that? In my opinion, we got to bring more businesses in. And I stood on that platform back when I was a councilor. That's how you get more revenue into the city. That's how you take the burden off the homeowners.
So, Kathy, to that end, I think maybe the biggest issue in this race specific to the ward is going to be the advanced manufacturing campus off of Hathaway Road, where the golf course is. how do you think your experience, your professional experience and your experience as a city councilor can help you be a steward, not just for the businesses, but for the people in those neighborhoods who have concerns?
Well, there's concerns, of course, with traffic. I live right around the corner from there on Rockdale Avenue, right off of Hathaway Road. So I have different ideas of that. But as far as the business aspect of it, I want to find out what we're doing to really promote that. Mm-hmm. No one has put bids in. No one's really, I think there's lack of interest or something, but there's a reason. We have to market our city. We have to really let people know what we have here, what's available for businesses, and what we can do to help them succeed.
So you talked to me a little bit about this off the air, but you were a steward for small businesses when you were on the Ward 3, when you were Ward 3 City Council. What are some of the more marketable aspects of New Bedford that you would pitch to people who might want to bid on the advanced manufacturing campus, or people that might want to set up a business in Ward 3 or elsewhere?
Well, one thing I really want to avoid is just, a lot of people will say, give them tax breaks. We can't. I mean, to some degree, it's marketing, though. It comes down to marketing and promoting the city. That's going to attract people and bring them into this. You know, we have to, who are we reaching out to? Who are we talking to come into the city? And that's my first question that I'd like answered.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So we're speaking with Kathy Dehner. She's a candidate in the Ward 3 City Council special election. She was a Ward 3 City Councilor previously as well. So, Kathy, you talked a little bit about, we talked a little bit about this. I think you've said this publicly. You have deep roots in the cities, in the city. Can you tell us a little bit about, how rooted you are in the city, some of what you and your family's foothold in Ward 3 and in the city?
Okay. So back in 1978, my parents purchased 4 acres of land on Rockdale Avenue. It had a farmhouse and a little cottage. That's where my children were born. That's where I live now. And we have developed the back end of the land.
Sure.
We had a road put in. It's Audrey Rose Lane. It was just accepted into the city. That's my mom's name.
Wow.
So we named it. She passed away in 1984. So my 2 daughters have already built on the land. It's just, New Bedford is our home. I was a New Bedford whaler. My children were whalers. My grandchildren are now in the New Bedford system. So every aspect of the city matters to me. School systems, public safety, taxes, of course. Nobody likes what we're facing with that right now.
Well, so New Bedford has notoriously high property taxes. The tax burden on people who live in the city is extraordinarily high, especially compared to surrounding communities. I as a homeowner in Fairhaven, my property taxes were significantly lower than New Bedford's for I think similar properties. How do you think the city? What do you think the city should do to alleviate the tax burden on residents?
Aside from bringing in businesses, like I said, we have a lot of city-owned property that's in disrepair, that's vacant. I think we have to do whatever we can to sell them to developers. Like get some of that out of our pockets, I guess I'd say.
Sure.
And bring some more investors in.
So there are Hathaway Road obviously is probably the longest stretch of area in Ward 3. You live off of Rockdale Ave, which my understanding is the half of Rockdale Ave, so if you're on Route 6, the half towards the park is, I think, 5. The other half is Ward 3, right, going over to the high school. But there's an area, the Hicks-Logan area in Ward 3 that I had Mayor Mitchell on. He said it was the most distressed area, the most distressed neighborhood in the city. I know that they've worked to get some, they're working on getting some development over there. But what do you think the Hicks-Logan area needs in order to, because there's a lot of promise. It's waterfront, it's waterfront property and all of that. What do you think the Hicks-Logan area needs for to be better developed?
Well, I'm told there's a boat builder coming in. That's the first step. And a lot of times once one business comes into the area, it ends up attracting other businesses. I know there was a point And although I'm running for Ward 3, every area of New Bedford matters.
Of course.
So there were plans for where Market Basket is.
Yeah.
They're talking about putting kayaks, putting different things like that.
Sure.
We have to really address our waterfront. It's prime location, and it is distressed. I get it. There's a lot of issues, a lot of cleanup problems that they've already happened. We're cleaning up as much as I'm sure we can, but it's a big step to get one business in there. Like I said, it's going to attract more.
So we're speaking with Kathy Dehner. She's a candidate in the special election for Ward 3 City Council. So you talked about, you're going to be, if you get sent back to the council, you're going to be one of 11 members, 11 person legislative body that votes not just on Ward 3, but the entire city.
Right.
Which is why I think everybody in the city and elsewhere should be paying attention to this race and getting involved if they behind a certain candidate if they want to see positive growth in the city. So, what are some of there's going to be a $450 million budget that you're going to vote on. When you were on the council, were there any areas that you saw as areas that needed to maybe be cut, and were there any areas that needed to be, allocated with a greater amount of funds? And, basically that's it.
Well, I can say off the top that we have to address our streets.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone. A lot of our streets are in such disrepair.
Yeah.
And these are roads that we drive on every single day. It affects people every single day. There needs to be more money allocated for that.
Yeah, I think DPI. I think DPI plays a critical role in city councilors' ability to get votes and all of that stuff, because a lot of it is quote unquote pothole issues and probably need a bit better allocation in their budget. You mentioned public safety a couple times. What strikes you as some public safety areas that need to be addressed?
Areas in the city?
Yeah, and Ward 3 in the city in general.
I don't think I can name one area that's more important than another.
Well, just generally public safety. What do you think needs to be done to improve public safety in New Bedford?
I like the idea of cameras. I know we have some in certain areas. Yeah. I think that's huge.
Greater surveillance. Yeah, no, greater surveillance across the city is important. I know the Housing Authority has camera, like a lot of their areas covered with cameras, but you're saying there needs to be, sort of increased surveillance capacity throughout the city, essentially.
Correct.
So we're speaking with Kathy Dehner. She's a candidate for Ward 3 City Council. She previously served on the city council. So there's going to be a recreational pot shop that's going to be opened in Ward 3. That's been an ongoing issue. I remember that was an issue in the special election 6 years ago, but it's finally coming to fruition. Are you supportive of a marijuana dispensary being established in the ward? Would you support further marijuana dispensaries being established in the ward? What are some concerns that you may have, if any?
I do have concerns with that. I can't say that I am in support of that.
Okay.
I mean, as much as I say I love business and I want to bring business in, that's not something that I'm...
Why don't you support a marijuana dispensary?
We have a huge drug issue in the city.
Okay.
And I know people will say that marijuana is not the gateway drug for other drugs. And I agree. I understand that. But I personally know some families dealing with addicts, addiction in their family. And I know some that will say, well, we'll just smoke pot and it's fine. And I disagree. I have an issue with that, and I don't mind standing on that.
So the opioid epidemic is huge. It's an issue not just in Ward 3, but across the city, and really any gateway city or town in the Commonwealth and in the country. It's one of the country's major issues. What do you think can be done to curb the opioid epidemic in New Bedford?
That's a tough one. I don't think that's just in New Bedford. You mean just in our city? Higher punishment for drug dealers. That's That's a tough one.
So you're advocating for stricter sentencing or crackdowns for on the MBPD for drug dealers, essentially.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the other issues that you think are important in the ward, and how do you want to address them?
I know number one is constituent services, talking with them. That people just want to be heard. Whether problems can be fixed or anything can be done, they want their issues to be heard. And that's something I promised this time, is should I get elected, that will matter to me.
And so what do you think you bring to this race that would make you a better steward for constituent services than the other candidates in the field?
Understanding all the needs of the city, being one of the residents. I'm not a polished politician. I've been in this city 66 years. I hate saying that age, but I know the city. I know the issues. I know things that can be changed, things that can't. But there's always a way to figure out at least some type of solution to any issue that they have. And I want to be their voice because I'm one of them. I'm a resident of New Bedford.
So, Kathy, you talked about a bit about public safety, some of the issues that you see and how you think they can and should be addressed. One of an issue with public safety, but really for city workers more broadly, and it's something that would be your predecessor if you got sent to the council again, was Hugh Dunn. One of the things he worked on was getting a home rule petition sent to Beacon Hill for Sergeant Mike Cassidy to get his family line of duty death benefits after he died of COVID. Now, there was some pushback from the mayor's office because of a precedent it might set, but ultimately they came to an agreement and they sent a petition to Beacon Hill. Now, it's just for Sergeant Cassidy. If this issue were to come up again, would you be supportive of giving line of duty death benefits to first responders who died in the line or city workers in general who died of COVID?
I would have to say yes, because they're putting their lives on the line for us. They were out there when other people wouldn't go out, handling things that we couldn't handle. And I do want to add, just because I'm really proud of this, my future daughter-in-law is a firefighter. She just
cool.
became, yep. She was just in the last group of whatever class they just had to get them in.
Yeah, sure. So, so that's pretty cool. So obviously you'd have you have a personal investment in this issue, so you'd want to make sure that it's not just, it'd be a protection for your family as well, right? So we're speaking with Kathy Dehner. She is a candidate for Ward 3 City Council. Another issue is that there's, an ongoing struggle between the mayor and public, the public sector employees and the unions, firefighters and police in particular, that they are, have a difficulty hashing a contract out, getting benefits and all of that. The mayor had proposed implementing a section of state law that had said basically that you can't. That it said basically that their dispute would go to arbitration, and the city council has rejected that a few times, saying it takes away the collective bargaining rights for public officials. Where do you stand on that particular issue? Would you vote in favor of enacting that area of state law, or would you vote against it?
I definitely support the unions. Like I said, we're talking about whether it's police, firefighters, first responders,
right.
Anything. What would we have without them? Like they're very important. They're the heart of our city.
So you talked about you're a whaler, generations before and after you and your family were whalers. Is there anything in public education that you think needs to be addressed that you want to address as a city councilor? I know the school committee handles a lot of those issues, but you also vote on their budget. So is there anything as far as education you think that you would support to improve the education system in New Bedford?
Right. Well, first, I just want to clarify it. not on a whaling ship.
New Bedford High School
Bedford
whalers.
High.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want them to think I'm that old.
Fair enough.
As far as... now I lost track of your question. I'm sorry with my silly joke. But anyways...
supporting education, what would you... is there anything in particular that you want to put forward that would improve the education system in New Bedford?
I think that we have to address the drug issue. Let them... I'm not sure how I want to word this, but educate our children more to the life issues that are going on around them. Help them to understand part of life is it's learning every aspect of it. Yeah. You know, the good, the bad. And it's funny because I've often said that every part of school is important, but we'll learn trigonometry or we'll learn science or they need to learn life also. I wish somehow we could get that into the school system am I making sense?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I want them to understand all of the issues that come with life, not just...
So, like, students being more well-rounded beyond
Yes.
just the core academic rigors, having a better understanding of what it's like in the real world and how to survive and flourish in the real world.
Correct. Talk about the opioid issue. Talk about public safety. Talk about whether it's just being a good neighbor or supporting your city or getting involved in community. They have to learn that.
So we're speaking with Kathy Dehner. She is running for Ward 3 City Council. She sat on the council previously. Kathy, I appreciate you coming on. We're running out of time here. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to leave the voters of Ward 3 with?
I'd like the voters to know that our city matters to me. It really does. I've said it already. I don't mean to repeat myself, but every aspect of the city matters. I would like nothing more than to be your voice. I want to hear your issues, your problems, because your problems are my problems. And I would really appreciate your vote and know that I'll be your voice.
So Kathy Dehner, candidate for Ward 3 City Council. Kathy, thank you for coming on, and look forward to talking with you more as this election carries forward.
Thank you.
Listen to us live.
And Marcus, 508-996-0500 is how you can join me. Open phone lines, remainder of the program. Kathy, former councilor Kathy Dehner was our one guest for the evening tonight. We've got some good stuff prepared for you for the rest of the week, but I do want to talk about, for the time being, and by the way, I got a chance to talk to Kathy off the air a little bit. Obviously, on the air, you heard our conversation on the air. Kathy strikes me as a very nice and genuine person who I think brings interesting institutional knowledge and private sector experience to the race. I think it's a great field of candidates. I have reached out to everybody. I've had a few candidates on. I wrote a profile on Robert, and I'm writing profiles on each of them. I wrote a profile on Jake Ventura already. I wrote one on Robert Cabral. That might be out now. I'm not sure. If it's not out now, it'll probably be out sometime tomorrow. And I wrote a profile on it is out today. You can check it out on WBSM.com. And I'll have a profile on on Bob Bromley tomorrow, who was on the same night as Cabral, and then I'll have a profile on Dehner, Kathy Dehner, either Wednesday or Thursday, depends, on getting that stuff out and all of that. Does take a little bit of work. So 508-996-0500. I do want to talk about. So Jack Spillane's got a column in New Bedford Light, and he talked a little bit about it with Tim today. And I enjoyed the column. I think Jack makes some pretty interesting points in that column. And by the way, 508-996-0500 is how you can get in the program. The conversation today I thought was interesting. I think people are talking about the carpetbagger issue. For me, I don't know if it's something that seems like an attractive issue it's something worth covering, right? Is the residency requirements and all of that, the residency and who's moving where and all of that. I'm not sure if it's an effective. I'm not sure if it's an effective campaigning tactic to say such and such is a carpetbagger. I think electoral history has shown that carpetbaggers do fairly well, even if they are actually carpetbaggers. I mean, it could just be that certain residents, even if they're close, if they move in closer to an election, are actual residents or want to be residents and want to be a part of the community and want, see an opportunity to lead that community, want to do that. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess the voters will decide, but 508-996-0500 is how you can get on. Good evening.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Ward 3, what part of the city is that again?
So Ward 3 is Cogswell Street, basically.
Yeah.
Some of the surrounding neighborhoods, like the very beginning of Acushnet Ave and Ashley Boulevard. Wamsutta Mills, where Hugh Dunn lived. Wamsutta Mills, that neighborhood, the Hicks, Logan area. Sawyer Street is Ward 3. And then it goes, up across basically all of Mount Pleasant Street and or at least most of Mount Pleasant Street and all of Hathaway Road. So it's not it's the one ward in the city that I think Jack Spillane said it earlier today isn't like defined by like any particular neighborhood, like Ward 5 is Buttonwood Park and Ward 6 is the South End, right? It's it's not all that contiguous. It almost seems like it's cut up of like leftover neighborhoods in the ward, that kind of go up like that. So
well, I was just because I get confused for some reason. So like I'm really into politics, and for some reason I always get confused on the woods.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say because I wish he was mine because I just like you made a comment how it struck you as like genuine. I'm telling you right now, like I'm pretty good at reading people and just I don't know. You can just see when you can feel something about somebody, and I'm telling you right now, she seems like a genuine, heartwarming, honest person right there.
Yeah, no.
I mean, if I was in Ward 3, I never even met her, and just by the sound of her, she would already be probably like I would already be favoring her just by hearing her talk about the issues and just how she sounds. I mean, she's spot on with her issues, and she just seems like a really good, down-to-earth person.
Yeah, and she's made that she's obviously made that impression on people before because she has won a couple of Ward 3 city council races previously. So I think your intuition is probably correct.
Yeah, I mean, she was great. I just wanted to call in and just ask that question and just tell people out there, I live in New Bedford. I got a house near the beach here at the very, very end of the South near the port. And,
sure.
I mean, if I could vote for her, I would.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. So, I think that intuition's correct. She does, like I said, just based on the off-air and on-air conversation, seems very nice and genuine. And, she has made that impression on the voters previously, having been elected before. So, again, I think a really great slate of candidates. So Spillane had to call him today. He was talking about, Jake Ventura's residency, the questions about his residency and all of that. I think he makes good points. I just, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's ever been an effect. Like, I don't know how much and I guess the voters will decide. I just never seen it as an effective campaigning against tactic. I think carpetbaggers, even if they are quote unquote carpetbaggers, let's just say people who may move into a city close to an election and see an opportunity to lead and want to take it. Never seen it as I haven't seen it work. Like I think it's legitimate criticism. I haven't seen it work, and I think Jake's got a pretty good set of qualifications. His profile's on WBSM.com. Again, Robert Cabral's profile just posted a few minutes ago, and I'll have a couple more posted by the end of the week, so you can look at all their other qualifications. I remember I've talked about this. I was involved in Hugh Dunn's campaign in 2017. That's an issue they tried to bring up against him, that he was a quote unquote carpetbagger. The thing is, it really was a coincidence that he moved into I'll tell you the story. I can tell you the story because with Dunn, and he's left anyway. He's resigned. He's no longer the councilor. But he moved in to the ward, I think like 10 or so days before Henry resigned. He believed he was in Ward 2. He texted Steve Martins, who was the Ward 2 city councilor at the time, and jokingly said, hey, I'm running against you. I'm in Ward 2, right? Just jokingly. And Steve said, no, you're in Ward 3, actually, and Henry's resigning in a few days. And so he knew Henry. He knew all those city councilors because of his work as a district rep with Keating. So he texted Henry, said, hey, or he contacted Henry, said, hey, you're leaving. I want to, I think this is, I think I'd be good for the job and all of that. And Henry said, yeah, absolutely. I'll support you. And Henry supported him pretty strongly. I know George Smith did at the time as well support Hugh very strongly. But that was an issue that was brought up during those campaigns. I think by a few candidates in the race, they had said, "Oh, he doesn't, he's not from here. He just moved to the ward recently," and he won those races pretty strongly. And I think it was I think that was a competitive field back then. It's a competitive field now. There's some really good candidates in there, but that was a competitive field back then. You had Kathy Dehner, she ran, who was just on. You had Mark Zajac, who was a city councilor before, Jill Usack, who was a school committee member. You had Guy LaRock, who's a trial attorney. Beth Photo, who was fairly new to politics, but ended up getting strong organizational support from the Coalition for Social Justice. And she was, I think later that year or the year after, named Standard Times Woman of the Year, right? So it was actually... If I'm missing anybody, I'm sorry, but I think I covered everybody. But it was actually a pretty competitive field of candidates back then. And, I think I was listening today. Jack's my friend. I like Jack, and I appreciate his coverage. And I do appreciate the mentions in his column. I think the other thing I think I didn't really agree with was, Hugh ran unopposed even after he got the OUI charge, right? And Jack says it's because because it was a quote unquote sleepy ward, right? I don't agree with that because we're all in agreement that there's a good field of candidates out there. There's a really qualified, good field of candidates in this race that are running. Former counselors, policy experts, right? Business owners, right? Educators. So it's not that sleepy. If there's an open race and there's really good candidates running, right? It's not. I don't think it's that sleepy. I think it's just because he did a good job. I think it's because he did a good job. He went door to door after to get signatures and seemed like he got more than enough signatures to get on the ballot. If it were really that much of an issue, I think it would have been a struggle. So I don't know. We'll see how that becomes. We'll see. We'll see if that issue of Ventura's residency becomes a problem in this race. We'll see if the candidates make an issue of this race. I just, from experience, what I've seen, I don't think it's going to be. I think voters just want somebody who's qualified and can do the job. I don't know if residency is in their minds. Now, I think maybe they might say, well, hey, I want somebody who's been in my community a long time who understands it better and all of that. And I agree. But there's also a policy. There's also I think, an important qualification for a city councilor is having a grasp on policy and having experience. No, I think Kathy Dehner has that. She was a city councilor before, and I think the rest of the councilors in the race have that. But I think the voters are going to say, and there's going to be very few voters in this race that are going to decide the Ward 3 city council, right? But I think why everybody in the city and everybody listening in the South Coast should take an active, should be actively looking at this race is because this one city councilor from Ward 3 is going to vote on issues throughout the city, right? We talked about the Mike Cassidy thing that Councilor Dunn worked on. That was an issue that impacts obviously everybody in the city and everybody outside of the city that works as a public sector employee in police and fire and et cetera, right? I think that was a very worthwhile and noble cause to help Sergeant Cassidy. I do hope that home rule petition does pass on Beacon Hill. I really do, because I think it's a worthwhile and noble cause to get Sergeant Cassidy's family the line of duty death benefits that they deserve for his service. That's what people want in the city. So that one city councilor is going to be enormously consequential, not just for New Bedford, not just for all of New Bedford, being one of 11 people who vote on city issues for over 100,000 people and vote on a budget of $450 million. But it's an issue for everybody in the South Coast because development in New Bedford impacts this entire region, impacts all of southeastern Massachusetts. New Bedford is very much the population economic hub of this region. So I think that's why everybody around should play an active role and be actively paying attention to this race. And if you want to get involved with these candidates, you certainly can. And we're trying to get you all the information on them that we can. So 508-996-0500. I'm going to take a break and we'll be right back.
1420 WBSM, New Bedford's news talk station.
Hey, it's Dana.
You never know who will call in the South Coast tonight. But they want to hear from you most of all. Call 508-996-0500 or use the WBSM app to send an app chat text message or leave voicemail.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program this evening. Again, had Kathy Dehner on earlier in the program at the 7 o'clock hour to introduce herself to the audience who may not know her and to talk about her campaign for city council. I like the candidates that I've had on so far. I think they all bring their unique qualifications to the race. I think from policy experience to previous municipal government experience, small business experience. So I think the voters will have a really good opportunity to pick a good successor to Councilor Dunn in January and February. Now, the signature papers, by the way, are due tomorrow, December 6th. I think I did get a press release sent to me from Ventura's campaign saying that they qualified for the ballot. They've qualified for the ballot. I'm sure the other candidates will have qualified for the ballot as well. I don't think I've gotten any official press releases. I just got one from Mr. Ventura, who sent it to us, and I think the newsroom. So 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. Again, I think it's an important race for everybody in the area to pay attention to. We'll take your calls and questions on it throughout the program. I do want to move on to some other stuff in the second hour. South Coast Rail, some important developments on South Coast Rail that are happening, that just happened today. And we'll definitely talk about that a little bit, in the 8 o'clock hour. The royal family came to Boston. And I think a lot of people were interested in that and what they were doing. And the president came to Boston as well. So, and the president's visit had some pretty big national implications, at least for the Georgia Senate race, which we'll definitely talk about in the program as well. So stay tuned for that. I'm taking your calls. I'm also taking your app chat messages on the WBSM app if you want to send me one. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on. We're going to take another break and then we'll finish out the hour here. Out the end of the first hour, there's some stuff I want to talk about. There's the Georgia Senate runoff. Massachusetts, I think, is playing a big role in that race, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The runoff is tomorrow. There's the Royals visit to Boston. We can still talk about Ward 3 if you want to, but 508-996-0500, that's how you can get on, and we'll get we can also take your messages on the WBSM app chat. So thanks for joining me this hour. Please stay tuned next hour and give me a call. I'll be here until 10 o'clock. So again, South Coast Rail, Royals visit to Boston, Georgia Senate runoff, and Massachusetts' role in that. And anything you want to talk about, you can give me a call at 508-996-0500. That's how you can get on the program. And we'll also take your messages on the WBSM app. So that's pretty much that. So I'll see you in the 8 o'clock hour.